We've got to talk about Mean Girls 2024. There's a gigantic problem with this movie, and I never thought I'd be saying this, but it's a math problem. On April 30th, 2004, a little movie called Mean Girls debuted in theaters. Written by Tina Fey and directed by Mark Waters, Mean Girls was a hit, and to say it made a cultural impact is a bit of an understatement. It became a sensation that continues to this day. It was given the Broadway treatment in 2018, and now, in the year 2024, that version of the story is available to watch in theaters as a new big-budget motion picture. However, the studio seems to have tried to hide the fact that the new version would be an adaptation of the musical and has been advertising it as Mean Girls for Gen Z, a full remake but now with TikTok. Starring Renee Rapp as Regina George and Angourie Rice as Katie, the musical was initially intended to be a Paramount Plus exclusive. This streaming movie would get the theatrical upgrade and is currently in wide release. The new version was met with mixed reception and doesn't seem to have landed with the intended audience. And I happen to have a little theory as to why. I'm not the biggest fan of Mean Girls, but I did enjoy the movie when it came out, and it just so happens that I have a good friend that is a bit of a Mean Girls enthusiast. He also happens to have a degree in mathematics. That'll be a bit important later, so just hang with me. So we went to see the new musical when it came out at our local movie theater. I love musicals. I grew up in the Disney Renaissance and binging Sondheim stage productions. I also think that Cats 2019 is a cinematic masterpiece. I'm clearly a person that can be trusted. Most of the songs in Mean Girls were just okay though. I felt like Rice's vocals for Katie were a bit weak and wished she had a bigger voice. But every time Rapp was on screen, I was captivated. Avantika was also amazing in her role as Karen and a clear standout. But the longer the movie went on, the more I felt like it was missing something. Most of the jokes were in-jokes about elements of the original that had become memes, and none of these hit the way intended. Some of the new jokes did land, but none of the rehashed elements clicked the way they did in the original movie.
Laura, I don't hate you because you're fat. You're fat because I hate you.
Then, during the pivotal scene at the math competition, my friend begins frantically shaking his head. He tries to whisper something to me, but I can barely make out what he's saying. They changed it. It's not right, was about all I could make out. We left the theater shortly afterwards, and a bit underwhelmed. I thought it was overall okay, but wish the Mean Girls had actually been meaner.
Oh my god, I love your skirt. Where did you get it?
It was my mom's in the 80s.
Vintage. So adorable.
Thanks.
That is the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen.
Meanwhile, he was freaking out. The limit exists. They changed it, and the limit exists. I asked him what he meant, and he began to explain to me how one symbol had changed everything. Take a look at the problem statements from 2004 and 2024 from the pivotal mathematics scene. Notice something different? This little plus sign actually changed the entire problem.
Whoever wrote it probably didn't think anyone would ever see it.
But before we can appreciate why that is the case, first let's do a quick review of limits and one-sided limits. I'm going to try to include lots of pictures to help you guys understand because some of this can get a little complicated. Consider function f of x. If for any positive value epsilon, there exists positive value delta, such that for any x where the absolute value of x minus a is less than delta, the absolute value of f of x minus L is less than epsilon. then we say the limit of f of x as x tends to a is L. We denote this by showing this. Another related definition is when L becomes unbounded. That is, for any positive value n, there exists a positive value delta, such that for any x where the absolute value of x minus a is less than delta, the value of f of x is greater than n. Then we say that the limit of f of x as x tends to a is positive infinity. The shorthand for this fact is... Okay, you're probably real confused now. These are just the definitions for limits and how they explain limits.
You're not stupid, Karen. No, I am actually.
But I'm going to show you with graphs how this applies to the movie and why it's so important to this discussion. So if you find this definition too technical, worry not. We're going to look and see how it works using the different figures. As x is getting closer and closer to 2, f of x, in this case, x minus 2 to the power of 3 plus 3 is getting closer and closer to 3. We denote this by the following. But x can get closer and closer to 2 from two different directions, either from the left-hand side as it increases to 2, or from the right-hand side as it decreases to 2. In the above example, they coincide. However, this idea of approaching to a value from different directions is so important. It has its own name, one-sided limits. The notation in this case would be: look closely at the plus and minus signifiers. The minus sign signifies the left-handed limit, whereas the plus sign signifies the right-handed limit. The key connection to the film is that these are asking for two different things. One is the left-handed side and one is the right-handed side. Take a look at this example. If we travel from the left-handed side as x tends to 2, the piecewise function will get closer and closer to 3. On the other hand, if we travel from the right-hand side as x inches towards 2, the function will get closer and closer to 4. We denote this by using the following. It can be shown mathematically that the limit of f of x exists at a given value if and only if both sides of the one-sided limits exist and are equal. This makes sense because in the earlier example, where two one-sided limits do not coincide, we have a little jump in the graph. We cannot say what unique value the function is tending to. Let's go back to the original problem from 2004 Mean Girls. The problem asks us if x moves closer and closer to 0, what value would the function tend to? Although it can be solved without the graph of the function, I think the graph is the easiest way to understand it without appealing to more math machinery. As we can see from the graph, as x tends to 0 from the left-handed side, the function only gets bigger and bigger. In fact, it tends to positive infinity. However, as we travel from the opposite side, the graph drops all the way to negative infinity. In other words, the left-handed limit as x tends to 0 is positive infinity, and the right-handed limit as x tends to 0 is negative infinity, which can also be observed by this table. This discrepancy is why the limit does not exist. They both go on in opposite directions to positive and negative infinities, not converging in the same value. The Mean Girls 2024 limit problem asks what only the right-handed limit is, and since it is not asking about the left-handed limit, and there is a clear trend how the function value is decreasing as we inch closer to 0 from the right-hand side, the answer is negative infinity. So Mean Girls 2024 changed the question but kept the script, meaning that when Katie shouts out her iconic line, a line that math teachers have been harping on for 2 decades now,
The limit does not exist.
she is wrong.
It's a factorial, so you multiply each one by n.
Wrong. Is that the summation?
Yeah, they're the same thing.
Wrong. He was so wrong. Thanks.
Whether this was a mistake of someone on the crew copying down the wrong thing or typing out the wrong problem just casts a light on a bigger issue at hand. They didn't really care that much. If you look at the blackboard used in the original film, it clearly shows that they're talking about one-sided limits and infinite limits, something that would be important to the finale of the movie. However, in the 2024 version, the board has introductory limit examples and no longer covers the necessary result that would be relevant to Katie's eureka moment during the competition. This juxtaposition shows just how much care went into the 2004 version of the movie versus how little care went into the 2024 version of the movie.
What are you? I'm a mouse. Duh.
This new Mean Girls is more concerned with regurgitating lines and references from the original that it forgets what made the original so special. Lindsay Lohan's iconic narration is replaced by songs, which works in most cases, but during the climactic math scene, she's forced to say all of her thoughts aloud.
Calling someone stupid doesn't make you any smarter, and ruining Regina George's life definitely didn't make me any happier. All you can do in life is try to solve the problem in front of you.
This makes the scene stilted, awkward, and confusing. Why would she be monologuing about girls fighting and judging each other when she should be solving a math problem? Wouldn't someone try to stop her from going on and on? The original's inner monologue makes sense as she zones out, but making everything literal in the 2024 version just displays how little effort went into adapting either the original movie or the stage production. This isn't a personal attack on anyone involved in the movie, and especially not Tina Fey, who's been ardently defensive of the production. I'm a giant Fey fan, and you should all go watch Girls 5 Eva.
And I definitely didn't let anyone know when my gallbladder exploded at our live to VHS Christmas special.
Ho, ho, no, he gets an Xbox and here's it's for both.
It's probably the best thing that Peacock has ever put out, and nobody watched it because it was on Peacock.
We are dream girlfriends, cause our dads are dead. So you never have to meet them and get asked why you left school.
I hope Netflix continues with the season 3 idea because I can't wait for more. Instead, I think it's a problem of reiteration. The original version had been iterated and reiterated on so many times that it's more important to reference the original than it is to focus on the version you're currently making.
That is so fetch.
What is fetch?
It's like slang from an old movie.
I believe that if the film had put more effort into differentiating itself from its 2004 counterpart, then it could have been something really special, something that fully embraced the musical elements while creating genuinely funny jokes. Instead, the movie just chases after lightning that the original so aptly captured in a bottle, only to wind up with an empty jar and faulty mathematics.
It's not my fault. You came with her, but she might leave with me.
Thanks for watching this little video on Mean Girls. If you liked it, check out some of my other videos, hit all those buttons, and I hope to see you later.
Janice, I can't invite you because I think you're a lesbian. There are gonna be girls there in their bathing suits. I mean, right? She was a lesbian. So then her mom called my mom and started yelling at her. It was so retarded. Now I guess she's on crack.